Hi, everyone. Dom Famularo here. And I continue with these incredible weekly interviews that I have such an honor and pleasure to have some time to hang out with several of my friends and wonderful players and educators. And it's really, really exciting. The Sabian Education Network. Sabian is truly one of the leaders of education. I would say probably the leader of education, because not only are they dedicated to all these different teachers that are involved with the Sabian Education Network, which Joe Bergamini manages, and he's at the helm of how he pushes this forward, but Sabian really invests back into education. And that's where you really believe, where when you purchase product, money goes back into education, which feeds all of us with more fun, more knowledge, and more empowerment. So I thank Sabian so much for that. And today, I've got a dear friend of mine, a phenomenal player who I've known for years from the band Zebra. Would you please welcome Mr. Guy Gelso?
Hey, everybody. Dom, I want to thank you very much for having me here today, and especially to Joe Bergamini for inviting me for this. And it's a great honor.
Oh, Guy, thank you so much. You know, what's great about this is that we have the chance of being able to touch base and step into your world and into your life, Guy. We're going to have people logging in right now from all around the world. I ask everyone when you log on, tell me where you're from, what country and what city of where you are, so we have better aspect to understand the reach that we have here. So again, what country you're from, what city you're from, bring it on so we have it here. But Guy, this is great because I want to make sure everyone understands the magic that you have. I've been a fan of your playing for years, Guy. You are such
thank you.
Really, you're such a student of the art form. You play your tail off all the time. It's from when I've known you, which is probably going back for well over 30 plus years, easily.
Yeah, we go back to the mid 70s. Yeah. No, not mid 70s, late 70s. Yeah.
Well, so you're talking about, you know, almost, listen, 40 some odd years ago, you're talking about an incredible amount of I've seen you grow as an artist with the band, kick and tail with the band. This is exciting. So let's go back to the beginning part of it, okay? You got involved with drums at how old?
Oh gosh, I remember about 12 years old. I got a snare drum, a pair of drumsticks, and then I took a coat hanger and put a pie pan on top of the coat hanger, hooked to the snare so I'd have a cymbal. And then eventually, I think it was about a year later, my parents got me a drum set. And then, you know, it was Brown Eyed Girl all the way at that point, playing the latest stuff. And I was good with, you know, just keeping a beat and all of that stuff. But then all of a sudden, Mitch Mitchell and Jimi Hendrix came around, and oh man. And I just, you know, I loved rock. I always have loved rock. I like a little bit more of aggressive stuff but I always like pop melodies, and in particular guitar play. I listen to a lot of guitar players. I'm always trying to play guitar licks on my drums. But you know, I travel everywhere with a suitcase and my drum set. I think when I was 17 years old, I went up to Lake Tahoe for a year and was just hanging around, my suitcase, my drum set. Played my first gig there. The drummer was at a local bar, this band, and the drummer got sick. They asked me to set in. I mean, I can't even tell you what I played, but I was there every night for a week, just play. I think it was a jam band kind of thing. And then, you know, I came back home to California. I'm from Oakland, and my parents split. I went to Sacramento, so I was up there for a while. I came back there, and you know, I met a girl. And she was from Louisiana, from New Orleans, which was just a name I had heard. And, you know, I followed her down there, suitcase and the drum set. And, you know, I started playing around, and I was a bodyguard at, checking IDs and things at a bar. And I had put together a couple of bands for this guy during the Mardi Gras season. And he knew me, the owner, and he knew me, and he introduced me to Randy Jackson. So we got together at his old bass player's apartment, Felix, who was our bass player now. And we used to just jam, the two of us. And Felix used to walk around and go, oh, this is terrible. This is terrible. But eventually we got him to be in the band with us. And then we were another band with a keyboard player for about a year. And then that broke up. And then Zebra started. And then, you know, from there, it was that right time in the right place. Right. And New Orleans was just happening with local bands. And we got to a certain point where we were drawing so many people that, we had to make a decision. And you either went to New York or California for the record companies. We knew one person in New York, Joe Franco, because they came down with the Good Rats and they played and they told us about the scene on Long Island. And that's when we went up to New York. 3 of us in the band, 3 crew members. Just imagine this. We're in a van and we're driving through the Midtown Tunnel. And once we get through it, we stop and we ask this cop, do you know where Manhattan's at? Because we don't know where it's at. The guy looked at us like we're crazy. We're sitting in Manhattan. But then we just started playing, and we would, we'd play for the Door up in New York and make a little money, but we'd have to go back home to make enough to survive. And so we were doing that whole thing for a lot of years till the record deal happened. And that took a long time. Let
me go back even before the zebra sound, because I want everyone to kind of get the understanding of how you develop your playing ability and stuff. And again, I've asked everyone that's logging on, and we're getting people, guys, that are logging on from Russia, Indonesia, Brazil. I mean, we've got people from all around the world here, from Belgium, right. Hoffman. We've got people from Arthur's from Ufa, Russia. We've got Artemy Kor is from Moscow. So Maxim Diomin from Kiev, Ukraine. So we've got people from Arizona. So we've got, the world is listening. Let's go back now. So you're in Oakland and you're influenced by Jimi Hendrix, Mitch Mitchell. What was it about that band that opened you up to the idea of playing music?
Well, I was playing, I spent a whole summer playing the Beatles' Rubber Soul album, and that got me started really playing beats and enjoying that. But then when Hendrix came along, Mitch Mitchell was playing a lot of syncopated things. Yeah. He was using a lot of rudiments, which I did not know about for a long time to come, but it just, it inspired me. I just liked the sound of the syncopation, and I liked the fact that he was playing against the melody a lot of time. Yeah. So that's kind of where I got into this thing about trying to duplicate melody on the drum set through linear patterns and things like that.
So Mitch Mitchell, who was more of a jazz player in how he played.
Oh, absolutely.
And even though Hendrix, we think of Hendrix as rock or blues in what we say, Mitch really played almost, he was influenced by Elvin Jones and Tony Williams. Mitch goes to a whole nother different level. So you were pulling from that kind of influence, and that was beginning to affect your playing.
And then also, and my dad was a musician. He was an accordion player in the Bay Area and a very popular teacher. And I heard nothing but the big bands growing up. I mean, he loved that stuff and the Frank Sinatra tunes. And to this day, I love that stuff. Yeah. And so, I was listening to a lot of jazz players, not so much rock stuff. Hendrix really just kind of turned me on to that style of playing. And, any song that Mitch Mitchell plays on, I can point to a half a dozen rudiments within that song. I'm working on a video of Fire right now just to see if I can do it. And there's so much rudimental stuff going on. Yeah, he was phenomenal. Phenomenal.
Well, it's interesting, Guy. Your reach and what happens is we've got people here from Mexico, Brazil, Finland. It's the old Long Island days, people who remember you going back to the Long Island days. So at this time now, who else were you listening to that helped shape what you were doing? Hendrix was one of them with Mitch Mitchell. Who else?
Well, the Rascals, Dino Danelli. I mean, he was fantastic.
How great was Dino, right? Dino.
Yeah. And then I tell you, when I was growing up, there was in my cassette deck, I was a little bit past the 8-track, not much, was Tower Power, the first album. Wow. And Zeppelin, the first couple of albums by them. And in particular, I really liked the Motown stuff. I was listening to a lot of Temptations and the Four Tops, which again, all of those guys started out in the jazz idiom. So they were playing those licks in a rock, because that's all there was for teachers back then. There was no rock teachers. It was jazz teachers. So they took those skills and they brought them into the rock world. And that's what really excited me. And I
Well,
guess that's where the thing with Hendrix. But if I remember standing in line at the department store waiting for the second album to come out of Jimi Hendrix, Axis Bowl is Love, and you listen to that first intro song, he's on brushes. He's playing brushes through the whole thing. It's fantastic. Yeah.
It's pretty amazing that you have this kind of a wide influence, Guy, because your playing is so driven, and you can really sense this influence in all of your playing. So you go back to Bonzo with Zeppelin, Tower Power. So you got the early days. Tower Power now is celebrating their 50th year together since 1970. So in those early days, as I was influenced by the band, and of course David Garibaldi.
Oh my God!
It doesn't get any better than Dave. I mean, as far as just laying down a funk groove with a horn band. If you're not moving, if you're not moving physically when that band is playing,
you're dead.
You're dead. Lay down, get the flowers, dig the hole. It's over. That's how that band is. So you were hearing them at an early age.
Oh yeah. I mean, I love that stuff. That's what I was listening to all the time. My cassette player. I just driving around. And the other big one, Santana.
Oh, interesting.
Michael Shreve. Oh my goodness. I mean, that stuff. When I started hearing all the Latin patterns going on, that really inspired me. And funny enough, when I started studying later on in life, and we'll get into that later, I already had all of this stuff. For some reason. It was already there. Yeah. And, I didn't even mention this, but my mother's side of the family were all bluegrass players, to the point where they even carving out their own violins. I've got one of my uncles. And so I knew all of those train beats and all of that stuff growing up. So yeah, it's just like a big melting pot of stuff all thrown in, and then I come out of it, That's what happens with influences.
So you were hearing big band music, you were hearing bluegrass music, you were hearing from Sinatra to
everybody.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, my dad played that all the time. When I stayed with my mom, I'd hear all of the country stuff, or not country so much as bluegrass. Yeah. And then I was going my own way, listening for melodies within. And my dad taught me about the melody. We used to talk about that a lot. He was a great player, and really talented musician. And so it was a good influence on me growing up. And then when I got in Zebra, a lot of guys study first. I didn't. I started playing in a band. So 5, 6, 7 nights a week, sometimes 2 gigs a day. Yeah. You're playing and you're having to work parts out on the stage. Now, I'm not advocating that, because I think learning the skills first is really important. But for me, I already had some skills. So when I did get to the teaching, all of a sudden, everything started to pop for me. When I was studying with you and we're talking about ideas, all of a sudden, the thing that I was doing before that I couldn't quite get right, I could get right now. I could understand what I was doing. I'd break it apart and make something out of it. So it was a great way to go about it,
This is so important, Guy, for everyone to hear. And we've got people logging on. Larry Levine just joined on, who I had the fortunate opportunity of interviewing. Larry, he's here, incredibly complimentary to yourself. Many of the guys from the Long Island area, and this is incredible. What's this? So when you started taking lessons, how did that come into play? Where were you at the time living where you had your first teacher?
Well, I was up in Long Island, and not to say anything down here, but I was going through a divorce, so I had some time on my hands. And so I decided I was going to go back to college. I was going to get my teaching degree and be a music teacher. So I enrolled in college, and I'm going to school over there. And then, the Drum Center asked me to start teaching, Long Island Drum Center. And you were there at that time. And I said, well, I don't really know anything about what I'm doing yet. And they said, well, let's get you into lessons. And that's when I went in with Jim Chapin and you and Al Miller, Charlie Perry, and I wound up staying there with like 3 years, I think, with everybody. And and then at that point I was teaching at the same time. And it was just my whole mind opened up to playing all of a sudden. It was a great experience for me.
Yeah, I remember those days very well. In the days of having Chapin and Al Miller and Charlie Perry, these were strong Long Island educators that were leaders of our community. And I can remember when we sat down together in our sessions, it was funny because with you, it wasn't about really teaching you as it was acquainting you with what you were already doing.
Yeah. Yes. Very, very well said.
You really you had these techniques of this free circuit and this rebound in your playing. You had molar, you had finger movement, you had it there. You just didn't exactly know what it was. So once you were acquainted with what it was, you were off and running like a freaking steam engine. It was incredible.
Well, that's what the guys in the band were saying. All of a sudden, my playing was taking an up trajectory, and they were commenting on it. Says, "My goodness, you're really getting better." And it happened real quick because, again, I didn't hit that brick wall every time I tried to understand what I was doing, and I couldn't get past it. All of a sudden, I could go through it. Yeah. And that's what education does. It opens it up for you. That's why it's so important as drummers to get in there and learn how to read music and all of that. Now, that being said, I hear this argument all the time about not reading music. Well, there's some great guys. Buddy Rich, he didn't read music. Right. But, Al Miller told me he came to him for it. And Al told him, no, I'm not going to teach you how to read music. I'll ruin you. Yeah. Exactly because right. He could memorize a whole sheet of music in one shot. He could listen to it one time, And Dennis Chambers is another guy who doesn't read music, but he's done 300-400 albums. He doesn't need to. Yeah. But that's far and few between,
But your point well taken, because listen, what reading music does when you learn how to read music, it helps you speed the process of learning. You can look at something, you can learn it faster. So that's part of the skill of reading music. But you're right. There's so many great players. Lib DeVito, another one that doesn't really read music.
Great player.
And Liberty, 30 years with Billy Joel on 150 million record-selling albums, he's done well for himself. So there are qualities that we have to decide within ourselves what we're looking to achieve and how we can improve our own skill base. Yeah. But interesting. So tell me how, like the lessons with Chapin. Jim now has passed away 11 years ago. And what was some of those lessons like with Chapin?
Oh, it was so much fun. He was just such a sweetheart of a person, just a kind soul, and I remember him telling me when we first started, he says, well, you've already got it. You've got the molar. You understand it. Let's just go through it a little bit. And I have his original sheets, which are like gold, those original. And I have your original sheets too from your book. Oh, wow. And those are gold, But yeah, Jim just explained to me, let go, relax. We got into put the string on the wrist and lift it up and let it go. And, he just taught me a little bit more about how to finesse what I already had.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Now, talk about someone like Al Miller, because a lot of people don't understand Al Miller, or don't know of Al Miller. But Al put together 6 fantastic books. One of them, which recently has been re-released on Wisdom Media, Al Miller Volume 1, and Al's son Matt Miller is one that is out there promoting the book. And Matt plays great and teaches great.
Really, I didn't know that.
What was it like with Al Miller?
You didn't go into Al's lesson and not be prepared. If you went in and you didn't have your stuff down, he would just say, okay, well, see you next week. And I appreciated that because I needed that kind of discipline. But he had a way of showing you how to do roles and how to define the reading. And it was just so helpful. He would take books and he would alter things and, this guy wrote this wrong in here. Let's correct that. It was just really, really, he was just on top of it. And his books are fantastic. I still use them.
It's amazing that we were fortunate to be on Long Island and where we live, that we were close enough to New York City, that we had the energy of these great players and teachers. You mentioned Charlie Perry. Charlie Perry was another phenomenal player who wrote many books, and Charlie replaced like Krupa after Benny Goodman. So, to play in that band and uphold that seat, there were some players that put some serious dedication into the art form where their names are just not second nature. So what was it like? What was it like with Charlie Perry?
Well, Charlie was I would go to his house. His wife would make me lunch and we would just talk a lot of times about things. And he had a lot of sheets written out. In fact, I just did a video lesson on taking a 6-stroke roll in 2 pieces. And by taking the second half and moving it around, it becomes an inverted 6-stroke roll. And you can get flowing syncopation from that. That'll be on my website soon. But
Right.
Charlie turned me on to that whole idea. Right, left, left, right, left, left. Hang on that right, left, right, left a couple times. So we got into a lot of that. But really, what I liked about Charlie is that, he had a definition when it came to playing swing and where to put that left hand. He had a definition for it. So you're sitting there and you're playing a ride pattern and you're playing quarter notes on the floor, and he would show me where to put the left hand because I couldn't make sense of it before. Yeah, it was invaluable stuff. I mean, I can't tell you how fortunate I feel I am that I got to be there with these guys.
Boy, what's amazing, Guy, is, I'm just looking at some of the comments here, and I ask everybody in their comments, if they have a question, for sure, ask a question, but state where you're from and what city you're from, what country, what city you're from. Frank Perry, who's a phenomenal player, who's a student of mine who helps me out with all my social media. Frank is a phenomenal player and teacher. He said, I was the lesson. Here, let me see if I can pull this up. Yeah, pull this up. Look at this here. I was the lesson after you with Charlie Perry, and the lesson after me was John Michelli.
Yeah, John Michelli.
Playing with Meatloaf. So when you think about it, Frank, thank you so much. When you think about it, just to have that level of players that came from that time. I mean, John Michelli is another monster player.
Oh, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And his feel in the studio is unbelievable. Yeah, he's a great player. Great player. And people don't realize how much he really does. He does a lot of session work for like the guitar player for Queen and people like that. And yeah he's active.
Oh, and another great player. I'm going to have to grab him one day to do an interview with John. He's just so fantastic. So what was it like? You're taking these lessons, you go with these books. Now talk about the beginning of Zebra again, where you kind of met the guys. So now you're on Long Island and you're really starting to crank up the band. Yeah,
we're just up there doing what all bands in that period of time used to do, driving around. We all lived in one house, arguing and yelling at each other and driving around in one big bus. And we were playing everywhere. I mean, we'd play a steady Tuesday, a steady Wednesday, a steady Thursday, and then we'd move the Friday and the Saturday around all over the place. Wow. And then maybe after Saturday night we get done, we'd jump in the van and drive all the way back to New Orleans to make some money down here at the CYOs. And I mean, it was just, I can't tell you how many times I made that drive between New York and New Orleans. That's 28 hours, and I know the route, nonstop, no sleep. But yeah, it was fun. We were at the right time, the right place. And, there were so many bands up there that were happening. I mean, you had, Billy Joel was already started and Pat Benatar was there. And then you had Twisted Sister that came up. We became good friends with them. Yeah. AJ Pero, that's a great player.
Rest his soul, man. What a phenomenal drummer, man. And really, again, a hard hitter. His groove was tight, dedicated player. I had seen him just about a year or so before he passed away, and just a sweetheart of a person. Really great.
Yes, he really was. People don't realize how good he was. I did a couple clinics with him, and he was just fantastic.
Yeah.
And then all those teachers that were there. I still stay in touch with Dave Stark down in Florida all the time. I mean, just a great player. It was just it was a great period of time. And so we were working towards trying to get a record deal. So we had a demo tape and we're putting it out there, and we couldn't get anybody to sign us. Everybody was refusing to do it, but that was the MO of the record companies back then. You really had to have your stuff together. They weren't just going to dump millions of dollars in, and people don't understand that now because you can go in a bedroom and just do anything and auto correct it.
Yeah.
You never heard the Beatles live. You don't understand. Those guys, their harmonies were perfect every time they sang. And that's the way you had to strive to be. You had to be that good live, and you had to have the songs together. So these A&R guys would come out and they'd look at you and they go, a little work here, a little work there. But we still weren't getting anywhere. Yeah. Well, Bob Buckman, WBAB up in Long Island, started playing us on the station. And we became the number one most requested song by a band on Long Island at that period, and we didn't have a record deal. Wow. It was just on one of their homegrown albums. And that's when it's a little bit of a longer story, but basically our rep finally brought it to the president, and the president still said no, but then he was driving home one day and he heard it on the radio and he said, let's go look into these guys. And that's when we got signed. So at that point, it was busy, busy, busy. Went in the studio with Jack Douglas, and that was our first choice. Jack is the guy that did all the early Aerosmith, all the early Cheap Trick. I mean, he just finished the John Lennon stuff, the Imagine album. And, going in with a Class A producer like that into the studio is a whole nother game, because these guys not only have the skills, but he was a musician. And he knew how to take songs and construct them properly. So he would take our stuff and he would just make little subtle changes, and all of a sudden smooths it out. Yeah. So we went into a rehearsal place in Times Square, and we rehearsed the whole thing. And then we just went in the studio at the record plant there, and that's basically near Times Square, and just knocked it out. I recorded my first album on the same floor that Aretha Franklin recorded, that John Bonham recorded. Do you know how important that is to me? From a kid that grew up in California, I remember when I was 14 years old going, I'm going to be a rock star one day. Shoot. And then to be there.
Yeah.
I remember the first time we played Radio City Music Hall, and it was blackout time, and I walked out on the stage, and I'm looking at this historical theater thinking, I'm getting ready to play here. Those moments are what sticks with me. And I'm not trying to be egotistical about it or anything like that. It's just, those are proud moments,
Well, they really are, guys. And listen, you have always been humble at everything that you've done in your playing, and you always undersell yourself. So, I mean, this is history that is a part of, and all these people that are saying that, the followers of what you're doing. You've got an incredible amount of fans here that have joined us here. What's amazing about it is that this is a history of how it was years ago that was so magical. Just talk about, like, recording this album. You're in the studio recording. What was happening? Was the band working together? Was the band on the same page? Were there challenges in recordings?
Yeah, it was. We were basically already done with that first album before we went in the studio, because we had been playing these songs live for fans. And we started out as a cover band, doing a lot of everything, and then it kind of whittled down to doing a lot of Zeppelin and Moody Blues and Yes. But then we started throwing in our original stuff. So we were playing it for years before we actually got a record deal. So we had ironed out all this stuff. So when we went in, it was easy enough. It was just set the drums up, get the sounds, and go for it. Mm-hmm. Now, I got to tell you, another thing teaching did for me at that time, and I hesitate to admit this, but I think it's important for everybody to hear it. My timing was terrible. Mm-hmm. Now, back then, you used to use the big 2-inch tape, 24-track machines. And if you look at the editing, if you look at the reel of Who's Behind the Door, off our first album, it's just cut after cut after cut, because they had to take it and piece it together, because I couldn't keep time very well. Yeah. And by teaching, all of a sudden, by studying, all of a sudden, working with a metronome, working with note values, understanding the divisions of them, all of a sudden things evened out for me and my timing got good. But yeah, it's, I remember Jack Douglas telling me that he had worked with Ringo Starr several times, and that you could take any track that Ringo did and slice it up into another track, and it would be the same tempo. Yeah. He had perfect time, as does your friend from Billy Joel, Liberty DeVito. Same, perfect timing. Steve Gadd, that's another one. His timing is perfect. It's not about being humble. I know I can play drums, but there's guys out there that are they amaze me, and I just can't say I'm good when those guys are great in my mind. So, that's just, when I watch you play and I see what you're doing with your feet, I'm going, oh my God, I've got to get there. So here I am, almost 69, and I'm still trying to get there.
But listen, this is what I love about what you're doing. You are still a student of the art form, which really states the obvious, that you are getting better and better. You have no desire to sit back on your comfort zone, so to speak.
No.
So when you were analyzing yourself and going through all these timing issues, what did you do to kind of like step back and correct a lot of this?
Well, we had to do a live album, and I knew that my timing had some problems. So I just started playing everything with a click. I would put my own clicks in. I would record it on a little 4-track tape recorder. I put the song over there, and then I put a click next to it, and I'd follow that click. And I got to the point where I could follow any click anywhere. I could play a live gig now with a click going the whole time, and it's not a problem. But I had to really work at that. And then I would just take certain tempos. And in particular, Zebra is a busy band. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's a 3-piece band, so I'm filling in a lot of holes.
Right.
And later on, when I started playing a lot with other bands, I realized I can't be that busy. Yeah. Sometimes it's just about keeping time. But so what I had to do for the Zebra stuff is I had to have a metronome going and play those parts where I would get really busy, where my body would move around like this, and I'd have to control my breathing a little bit and understand, don't take a big breath before you go for that. Just relax, everything basically that you guys taught me, relax in your playing. So,
but your technique was always good. Your technique was always smooth, and whatever was shown to you, because I remember those lessons with Chapin and these guys, you got it fast because you already had it, so you were able to manipulate that. So it was so great that you were putting yourself under the microscope and continuing this constant learning process, which was amazing.
My left hand, that's my work right now. Trying to get my left hand. I see some guys doing things they're doing in a French grip, and I just got to get there. Yeah, I have to get there somehow. So I just keep working at this stuff. That's one of the reasons I'm going through the stick control again, accents and rebounds again, the John Wooten book, going through the rudimental stuff. I find a lot of times I'll just pull out the 42 rudiments and just play them. And I'll just sit there and I'll just play one until I feel comfortable with it. Then I'll move to the next one. It may take me an hour, but it gets my hands moving. And then I have to analyze things. I don't know if you do this, but a lot of times I'll take something like some accent pattern. I'll do it with both hands because I'm trying to analyze what my right hand's doing from my left hand at the same time, So just working on things like that. Just trying to move forward. I can play songs. I'm not worried about that now. It's just trying to get some of the techniques together.
Well, that's something which we all work on. I got a question here from Bill Sabia, who's a wonderful, wonderful player. I've heard some of his stuff on YouTube, which is fantastic. What's the best way to develop a tight groove? He's from Port Chester, New York.
Well, you got to listen first to the guys that really have the tight groove and try and understand where it's coming from. But if you've got a pulse going, you're trying to hit that pulse, but then you start focusing on that left hand if you want it to lay back or go forward. If you listen to David Garibaldi, he'll push that left hand forward a little bit. But if you listen to John Bonham, he pulls it back. So, and you listen to someone like Dennis Chambers, and he's right on top of it every time. Yeah. And in particular, I really like the grooves that are happening with the hip hop guys right now. They're just, Chris Campbell and Aaron Spears. Oh my God, these guys are just unbelievable players. So I listen to them a lot to try and understand where this groove is coming from, and then I'll just try and duplicate it. And I might record it and play it back. I mean, I've got an audio set up here that I use, and I'll throw something down and listen back and go, nah, that wasn't quite it, and keep working at it,
Well, I've seen your setup, as we've discussed in the past, and you put together an incredible setup there. So the fact is, going back and videoing yourself and going back and recording yourself and really being the critic to your own playing is probably the best way to develop that tight groove, really.
Yeah, and also having a mirror next to you, get a full-length mirror and put it on your left side and watch what you're doing with that hand. Because most of the groove stuff, I mean, I would say it's more in the left hand than anything else, but also pulsing. When you're playing, I see a lot of guys, they're jabbing at the hi-hat like that. You got to get a pulse going. You need to feel the quarter note pulse, even if you're playing 16th notes, 1 and 2 and 3. You need to feel the pulse and move with it. And that's when it starts to feel good.
Well, that's great advice. Bill, thank you so much for the question. We got, check this out here. Joe
Well,
Libretti. That first Zebra record is easily one of the best rock
Libretti.
albums of all time. Joe, fantastic. Thanks for asking. Talk about that. Talk about doing that first album when that came out. What was that like when the album finally came out and you saw this thing on an LP, right?
Yes. Yes. And in fact, that LP is coming back out. They're going to do a reissue of it with all kinds of extra stuff later on next year. You know, walking down on the Avenue of Americas and seeing the Tower Records with our albums all the way across the front. I mean, you know, you can't forget that kind of stuff. It was a great period in time. You know, I'm almost hesitating to say that because I don't want myself to go back, you know, and be one of those guys, you know, I played the big football game and where am I at now? That's no good. You know, but I appreciate it for what it is. You know, it was a great time. And hearing it on the radio, you know, I get fans all the time. They'll send me the Sirius Radio, a photo showing that one of the songs is on. And I go, thank you very much. You know, they're still playing the first album. It's still in rotation all the time. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm real proud of that.
So and you should be. So what's it like when you go back and hear some of the early recordings and you hear what you guys are doing? How does it feel when you go back and hear that and the energy it took and the musicality it took and where the band was at? What's that like when you kind of go back and hear that?
I want to fix things. I want to fix things because I have skill sets now that I didn't have back then. Not so much on the first album. That one we kind of worked out live, but second and third album, there's, and I'm very proud of the parts, but there's a lot of little things I would have done differently. But you see, with Zebra, it works a little different. Now, in some bands, you know, you get a tape recording of the song and you go and you work out your parts, the band gets together. Or like Genesis, they all get in a room together and they just come up with parts till they got a part. But in Zebra's case, our guitar player, Randy Jackson, the guy's a genius. He writes unbelievable material. You guys haven't even heard some of the great stuff that he's written. And he's very meticulous when he writes. So he's already got everything, the whole package in his head. So in the early days, I used to fight that. I used to argue with him, oh, no, I got an idea, this and that and that. But now I realized, you know, you can't get in the way of a songwriter. You know, they know what they want. So I started just going along with, he would tell me what kind of beat he wants, where he wants it placed. No, take that. I want you to put an extra hi-hat over here, or this and that. And I just go with it. And I think that's a real helpful thing for anybody doing studio sessions and things like that. You got to listen to what the songwriter is asking for. So yeah, that first album, yeah, it was pretty much etched in stone. You know, the second and the third we had to work at, and the fourth one, I'm proud of that. I would have probably overplayed it a little bit if it hadn't been for the guitar player, Randy, telling me to back it off a little bit. But yeah, a lot of fun.
It's pretty amazing when you think about what we've been through and but we're still going through it here, which I think is powerful. Here's Arthur, who is a phenomenal player. And he said, what's your favorite page to practice in this stick control book?
Oh, the first page. The first page. Singles and doubles and paradiddles. I mean, there's so many ways you can play that. And I will do a video on that. I mean, you can take a paradiddle and you can play it as a paradiddle, or you can play each one of those as a right, right, left, left, right, 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 right. Or you can play each one as a paradiddle. Right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, right, left, right, 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 left. You know, it goes on and on. You can put the left hand in the left on the snare, the right foot, right hand on the foot. You know, it just goes on and on. There's just a million ways to do it. As is syncopation, same thing. There's a million ways to play it.
Yeah, but again, it comes back to the creativity of how you want to play the page. You got to kind of look deeper into the page. But that first page, page 5, really is a classic page in stick control, which is just
yeah. And I really like the flam section too.
Yeah.
That's flams are kind of a sore spot for me, and that I want to. Well, here's the thing. I'll see a great drummer that I really like, and I zero in on this one thing they're doing, and I'm trying to get it. So I'm watching, and I'm not even going to try and be Vinnie Colaiuta, but he does this thing where he does alternating flams really fast. Oh my gosh. I got to have that. I've got to have it. So I keep working at it. And Todd Zuckerman does the same thing. He'll do that same thing with the flams. But I think it has something to do with playing traditional grip more than match grip. But maybe I'm wrong about that. You're a hand instructor, so you would know.
Yeah.
But
it works at birth. Both the match grip position really has many advantages to it, and you'll see players that are doing great flam stuff. Gad's playing more match grip, as many players are, and it goes back to the movement. Again, I imagine in match grip, imagine how much better we would play if our weaker hand was equal to our stronger hand.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to. If we have some players are kind of like this, their weaker hand is really a lot less. If we brought that up, that's really where skill really opens up.
Yeah, and that's another thing I work at. In particular, I'll reverse beats a lot now. Now, I don't do it all the time live because I might lose the feel of the song for the fans. I don't want to do that. But I will, I know there's a motion here on the hi-hat with the right hand, and I'll just try and duplicate it over here to get it going, and then try and fit in all the notes on the snare. So yeah, I'm working towards that left-handed thing. That really opens up a world. Now, I'm probably not going to put my ride cymbal over here. I'll have the ride there because that's already open.
Right. So what is it with your setup? I mean, and how you have your setup happening? I mean, you've been with Sabian for a while now, and you've got a whole different setup of what you have as far as just, first of all, your studio and how you set up is fantastic. The camera angles you have, this is really, really incredible that you have a variety of different camera angles that you're able to shoot from.
Well, I've had pretty much the same setup for a lot of years. I like to use 2 bass drums just because it's more even. The setup is more even. Yeah. I have this set up here in the recording studio as a single bass, and I can get a little more speed out of the double pedal than I can 2 bass drums, but I just like the evenness of it. But I use an 8, a 10, a 12, 14, 16. Sometimes I use a 16, 18, depending. 22s, sometimes 24s, but I've been liking 22s more. But the cymbal setups I've been with the AAX Brilliance for quite a while now. I just like them. They really have a good explosion that comes out of them. They're consistent. And let's face it, I'm a rock player, and I'm going to break cymbals, and I don't break that much. In fact, I don't break heads or sticks, really. I think that gets down to technique. I just whittle the sticks down to nothing. But, I use a 16, a 17, 17, 18, and 19. I've always used a 20-inch ride. The AAX are my main go here. I use a stadium ride over here. I was at NAMM show a couple years ago talking to Chris Stanke, and we talked about a couple rides, and he mentioned the stadium ride, and I like it. And then the chinas, well, these Chad Smith Holy chinas are just fantastic. I always had a problem with the chinas and that they were abrasive, and I could never find a good one. I liked the Pang cymbals years ago by Zildjian, but that's, I don't play that anymore. So I couldn't find one that I liked. And then when Chris mentioned these Holy chinas, I go, oh, goodness. And I love them. So I got a whole nother set of the same thing up in New York for when we do gigs up there. and I like these little guys. I'm into holes lately. If you can see that. I like
the ozone style, yeah.
Oh, I just like the sound of them. It's fantastic stuff.
Out of the mind of the insane Chad Smith, the holy chinas. It's so hysterical, man. They were, again, I remember the posters when they came out of him wearing a priest outfit, holding the cymbal up, which was just totally hysterical. Yeah. But they really punch great, and they hit and then get out of the way.
Yeah, they get out of the way. They decay real fast, and I like that. And I like that. It's not as abrasive, and it's just kind of got a better sound to it. Hi-hats, I used 13s for years. I got into the 13s back in the Long Island days when we were all doing the fusion thing. And but then I recently went back to 14s. And I don't understand. I see some of these guys with 16s, 17s, and 18s, but new things happen. But I'm a 14-year guy, and I use the AAX on that too. Now, I'm going to have to get some HHX. I'm going to have to try that because they got a real sweet sound to them. Yeah.
I'm an HHX person. It's a different hand hammering process. It's a
Yeah.
larger ball bearing, ball peen hammer that's on it. So the hit is larger. So they shape the cymbal differently. And this is again the brilliance of everybody at Sabian at the manufacturing plant. They are just
Oh, yeah.
trying different things. They're hammering. And the hand hammers that are there. They are absolutely artisans at the highest level. So you'll see with the HHX, it's a darker cymbal because the profile is flatter, but they sound just so beautiful.
And the other thing is, if you're out in the middle of the road somewhere and you need to get a replacement cymbal, with an AAX, they're all going to sound the same. A 16 is a 16, a 17. With other brands, it would be inconsistent. It'd be too heavy or too light. And they're very consistent. And that's what I enjoy about them.
Well, it's just so amazing to kind of understand the fact that all these different cymbal sounds can inspire us to set up our cymbals differently, and even how you have your china, how you set up. Your setup is unique to you.
Terry Bozzio. No, I don't take that. That's Terry Bozzio. Oh yeah, I saw him years ago, and whatever it's worth, I guess it's become my thing. People expect me to do it, but like I said, I get one thing from somebody. And, I'll kind of stick with it. So I just would see him in Zappa going for that. And I love that whole thing. So, yeah, I stole that.
So
that's what stealing's the wrong word.
Well, no, it is stealing. I mean, it's heavily influenced by what they're doing. We steal it and then turn it into our own stuff. Are there any players now that you're listening to that you really are amazed at and blown away by?
Well, these hip hop players, Chris Campbell, I just, Aaron Spears, just unbelievable. Who's the young guy been around for, can't think of his name, but I see him all the time on YouTube. Just the young black players are doing things differently because they come from a different style of music, and they've taken that and have gotten really aggressive. And I find it really cool stuff. I'm kind of amazed. I grew up where grace notes were the thing, getting that left hand down, doing a lot of grace notes, but they're not doing a lot of that nowadays. It's more of a solid hit and then moving around at one level, not so much with dynamics, but it works. It really works. But, I got to say, I'm at the age where I'm going back to, the Terry Bozzios and the Vinnie Colaiutas and Simon Phillips. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I mean, that guy just,
it's amazing.
I don't know how he does it.
How about someone like Cobham? Was that in your?
Oh, gosh, yes. Oh, gosh, yes. I just did a video on, I stole a lick from him, a left-handed flam accent around the toms. Yeah. Oh, gosh, yeah. The Spectrum album, that was just, I'm listening to that thing. I must have worn it out 10 times. Yeah, Billy Cobham is just, there's drummers and then there's drummers, And so, he's just fantastic. He's done so much over the years.
Boy, this is
and he's a musician, a full musician.
Yeah. I mean, he composes, he writes, plays keyboard. Billy is a full-fledged, dedicated artist at many levels. Yeah.
Yeah, he really is. I guess I go back to those older guys. But then, I listen to some of these. I don't know the guy's name, but I'm always looking for new bands. I don't want to be like my dad where he's stuck on the same old bands. I'm always looking for new bands. Yeah. There was a band called the Rival Sons that's come out, and they're very good. I don't know the drummer's name, but he's fantastic. He's solid as a rock, yet he's got chops. Jeremy Colson, that plays with Steve Vai.
Yeah, I know Jeremy, yeah.
Amazing player. Yeah. I mean, the guy has got this kind of punk rock thing going, but then all of a sudden he'll unleash this fusion thing.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got chops, Jeremy,
real good player. And I had the chance of doing a performance with him in Mexico, and we did a festival down there, and he just played great. And just to sit on the side and watch him play, you're right. There are these great players that are out there that are just hitting it hard.
Well, we came up in a time where radio stations told you what to listen to. So you knew all the big bands that were out there. You listened to Kansas and you hear Phil Earhart, or you listen to this band over there or that band. So you knew where to go. Now you have to hunt the music out. You really have to look for it. And you have to take the time to listen to new stuff. Go on iTunes and pop in to see what these new guys are doing. And then you discover. And then YouTube is really helping with all of that.
Yeah,
you're seeing a lot of great players on YouTube. So I'm always scanning, looking for new bands to listen to.
Yeah. Well, you're in the process now, Guy, from your studio, you're putting together a series of videos, and GuyGelso.com, you're starting to amp up some educational stuff of what's happening. Just talk about that as far as what you're doing with all these different videos and stuff. Well,
I taught for 14 years, and then I kind of laid back for a few years because I got into business. And then, it's just been itching at me to get back to teaching again. I want to share what I know. I felt I was a good teacher. I felt that I still get compliments from ex-students, which is really a nice thing. My wife, 33 years as a teacher, and students just constantly compliment her. So I have a lot of respect for teaching. So actually, you and I were talking, and you mentioned to me that, hey, in fact, I'll go back even farther. The Long Island Hall of Fame. You probably don't remember, but you said to me, Guy, you're a player. You need to play. And it always stuck with me. But I was in business at the time. And then we spoke recently, and you said, you got to get back to playing. And I just said, you know what? I'm just going to do this thing. And you wanted a video from me. And I said, well, I can do a cheap, junky video, or I can do it right and really get into this thing. Now, I see what these young guys are doing, but I think what I'm going to do is try and come more from my age bracket, show the things that I know. And that's really been the hard thing, is trying to come up with content that I know is legitimate for me, and it's just not something that somebody else has done. But I want to show appreciation to the drummers. Like, I'm going to do some videos on Mitch Mitchell, and I'll do some videos on some of these other famous drummers out there that people don't remember, and break the songs down and show them where the beats are at. That kind of stuff. They need to get educated in the past. And I mean, they've been doing that for years. We all go back to the Papa Joe Jones and all of those kind of players way back then, So I'm going to try and do the same thing with this education thing. I'll show them the fancy chops. I'll show them all of that stuff, give them some eye candy, but then I want to get deeper into it, So that's what I'm working towards now. And so I got this video studio set up, and it's a learning process.
Tell me about it, right? But you've got several cameras set up. You've got the drums are all mic'd up. The sound is so great. It looks so great. You really put the attention and the research, which is what we have to do. We've got to do the homework.
Yeah, you got to do the homework. And I wanted this to be set up not only just for recording videos, but also to be able to do audio tracks, because Zebra's going to do another album, and be able to teach from here too. And I've got a switcher down here, and I can switch positions of the cameras, and I can show people different positions. I can be talking to somebody, and they say, well, what are you doing with your feet? I hit the button, they can see my feet, and that's the goal here. I still have some learning curve to go, but I'm getting there. I've
been doing this for many, many years, teaching online and doing this camera stuff. And there's a great former student of mine and a great player, Jim Toscano, who's been on the Sabian Education Network several times talking about all these different camera angles, and he's brilliant with this. And he's helped me to upgrade all my stuff in my studio. And I have the same thing. Now where we are at right now because of this pandemic, doing these kinds of sessions, and I'm in here all day. As I said, I just finished a wonderful masterclass to tons of students from Russia, from Ukraine, from Cyprus, and we're all online, and we're doing this. And this is now the new world that we're living in right now.
There's always good that comes out of something bad. Yeah. I'm a firm believer in that. And, if you look for it, and this pandemic has just been horrendous, But on the other side of it, we're all getting into different things, and we're musicians, and we're getting online, and we're learning about this technology. I mean, I've always been a tech head. I've been into computers going way back to the 70s. Yeah. So it wasn't a big stretch for me. but figuring out how to do exposure settings on a camera. I'm not an audio guy. I have an audio setup, but I have to rely on an engineer to do it for me, but I'm learning. I'm getting there. Lighting. Oh my goodness.
Well, I'll tell you something. With all of this here's John Owens. John Owens is a phenomenal student of mine, and he's in the T-shirt business, and he's a phenomenal drummer and getting involved with teaching. And we're doing lessons. When I see him all the time, he's funny. Actually, this T-shirt that he put together for me is from John Owens. If T's could talk, so he's just a phenomenal person. But he said in here he'd like to see a video in the jazz left-hand stuff you spoke about earlier. So now there are people that want to kind of see just what you're talking about here. There's probably about a handful of videos you can come out with that can be going on to you. So this will all be on GuyGelso.com. Mm-hmm. And you have a YouTube channel too, right?
Yes, Guy Gelso, YouTube/Guy Gelso.
I want people to go there and check out the YouTube channel. Yep. And social media, as you begin to experiment more with the social media, and as you widen this out, this is exciting, Guy, to see that now you're back into action.
Yeah, I'm back into action. I'm out in the world.
Louder than ever.
And I'm enjoying playing. Yeah, enjoying playing. I
Incredible.
really am.
In closing, Guy, what would you say to this next generation that are listening out there, that this younger generation, and we mentioned, listen, the Chris Colemans, the Tony Roysters Jr., the phenomenal young
guy was thinking of Tony Royster. Oh goodness.
Larnell Lewis from Snarky Puppy. These are players that are doing some great stuff. What would you say to this next generation of players that could give them the fuel they need to move forward? What would you say to them?
Well, besides lessons, because that's really important, you got to really open your mind to all the eras of these drummers. Just being locked into what you like musically doesn't work. I may not like some of the stuff that my dad was showing me, but I was listening intently to those drummers. And so I really think you need to listen to the history that's going on. You need to go back, listen to the big band guys, and then you need to move up into guys like Mitch Mitchell and understand where Mitch was coming from. And then moving up to the Vinnie Colaiutas. Who did he study with? Gary Chaffee. You need to get into the Gary Chaffee books and things like that. They just need to keep their mind open and don't get stuck in a rut. And don't think just because I'm 69 years old that I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing. That's just to drummers, age is just a number. It doesn't mean anything. It just doesn't mean anything.
69 years young, Guy.
Yeah, well, I'm still 68 officially till the 29th of the month, but let's just call it 69. Yeah, but I still got lots of energy. I still stay in shape. I work out all the time because I think it's important, not only for physically but mentally. And for me, getting on the drum set is the mental activity I need. There we go. Words of wisdom. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that, Dave.
Dave Lewin, a phenomenal player in the New York area here and a great teacher himself. And that's what you're offering them, really great words of wisdom. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, honor the tradition. That's it. You have to listen to the whole wide spectrum, and not just the old guys, the new guys too. Yeah. You have to get hip to you don't have to like hip hop, but watch those guys play. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then I would say the drummers nowadays really need to stay in on the technology, keep up on what's going on with the new drums, the new technology, the streaming, the web service stuff, and on all of that stuff. It's important because you're going to need it.
Well, listen, and John Gill says it great right here. Always a student, forever learning our craft. John is another phenomenal player and teacher in the Oneonta area, upstate New York. So these guys are hearing you loud and clear, Guy, on what you're saying. And you've got
just my view for whatever it's worth, Well, it's what's important to me.
It's worth a lot, Guy, because the years of experience that you have, that's what we're coming from. Wisdom is the combination of knowledge and experience. You've got both knowledge and experience through the years of doing it. And that's why these sessions are so great for them to hear your words.
It just takes me a little longer to get started in the morning. That's all. And I might have to warm up a little bit more. In the old days, I had a van that I had decked out, and I'd pull up to the back of the club. We'd do sound check. I'd go get in the van. I'd go to sleep, and I'd tell the guys in the crew, wake me up 10 minutes before we have to hit the stage. Literally, they'd wake me up 10 minutes later, I'm slamming away. Nowadays, oh no, that's a whole day's activity. You gotta get lots of rest. You got to eat right. You got to warm up for a half hour.
And as we get older, we have to accept age gracefully, which is what
Yes,
you're doing.
You know, it is what it is. We're all going to get older. You know, just don't stop playing. Don't stop learning. You know, that's the fun part. What would I do if I retired and sat around and watch TV all day? No.
Boy, that's fantastic, guy. That really is great words. You know, having this opportunity that the Sabian Education Network puts on, Joe Bergamini, you know, he's just fantastic in how he manages his site and puts this together. He's got shows that he does on Fridays at 2:00, so he's actively doing his thing. The entire Sabian team are thankful, Guy, for all that you're doing. Thank you so much for your time.
John, thank you. Thank John. Thank Joe, and thank you very much for all of this. I really appreciate you as a person, as a teacher. You've really helped me a lot over the years. You've inspired me, and you still inspire me. And so does Joe. You know, this is a great format for you guys. It really is.
This is part of the great family that we are within Sabian. It's really, really pretty amazing when you think about the fact that we're all still doing it. So I thank you so much. Stay strong if you can, Guy. On this will be aired on the Facebook page and Sabian's YouTube channel.
Okay.
So when you go back to the YouTube channel, you'll be able to answer some of the responses that they have on there on both Facebook and YouTube. Go check it out. You'll see tons of people there. Guy, I thank you so much. Stay well, stay strong, and we'll talk soon.
See you, buddy. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.